My name was Amir. I was a Quran teacher, a pillar of my community in a strict Islamic school in Saudi Arabia. Respected, disciplined, and dutiful. A teacher molded by tradition, yet silently drowning in my own spiritual void. I was entrenched in rituals and prayers, but deep inside, I felt the chains of unasked questions binding me. Each prayer felt hollow, each lesson a mere echo of meaning long lost. And then darkness came, a darkness that would shatter everything I thought I knew. One fateful day, in a moment of careless speed, I found myself in a deadly car accident. As metal crumpled and breath faded, my spirit slipped away from the confines of my body. I thought I was leaving this world behind, but in that void, a presence enveloped me, Jesus. Not as the prophet I had been taught to acknowledge, but as the embodiment of love and truth. He called me by name and illuminated the abyss of my despair, revealing the spiritual conflict raging around us, an unseen war that dictated not just my life, but the lives of millions. I witnessed a profound revelation during those fleeting, suspended moments. Chains of fear and control binding not only my mind, but an entire society. I realized I wasn't just confronted with an alternative belief. I was plunged into a transformative truth that beckoned me to abandon the oppressive weight I had carried for so long. It was a cosmic awakening, a glimpse of liberation that both terrified and exhilarated me. But then came the return, the agonizing moment when I was thrust back into a world that didn't know the freedom I had tasted. Back to the whispers of betrayal, the weight of disapproval from family and community. I became a pariah, branded a heretic for daring to explore the truth that stood boldly against the prevailing dogma. In my heart, a tumultuous battle raged between fear and the undeniable call I had received. The light surrounding him illuminated the oppressive void, pushing back against the shadows that sought to envelop me. It was as if he knew my heart, my struggles, my silent questions, everything I had buried beneath the weight of expectations in my life as a Quran teacher. "What do you seek?" he asked, and I felt the weight of his words reverberate through me. This was no random encounter. It felt like an invitation to finally confront the truths I had long shunned. I was drawn into a revelation of staggering clarity where the hidden agendas of society unfurled before my eyes. I saw how the elite wield power through manipulation, planting seeds of doubt and fear to divide humanity and maintain control. The deception was insidious. It clung to the very fabric of our existence, altering perceptions, controlling narratives, and shaping beliefs. As visions flashed before me, scenes of conflict, division, and suffering, I understood the magnitude of the spiritual war being fought around us. Jesus helped me see that these battles were not merely external, but also waged within our hearts and minds. The dogmas I had clung to began to unravel, revealing a deeper truth that faith ought to liberate, not confine. The more I understood, the more liberated I felt, yet the fear of the repercussions loomed heavy. I had witnessed the struggle for truth and unity, but could I bring this awakening to my community? Would they embrace the light, or would they cast me aside as a traitor? As my near-death experience unfolded, I felt both exhilarated and terrified. The urgency of the truth washed over me. It demanded to be shared, but fear gripped my heart. I was faced with the daunting question of how to convey the lessons I had learned during this life-altering encounter. The reality of returning to a world steeped in deception, where conformity reigned, was overwhelming. I needed to speak out against the manipulation and fear that had infiltrated our faith and society. But how would I do it without alienating myself from those I loved? The conflict within me intensified, a poignant reminder of the stark choices I now faced. In those moments of enlightenment, there was also a bittersweet acknowledgement of my past. My family, my friends, my community, they had always been my source of strength, yet I now stood on the precipice of rejecting all I knew. As the visions faded, Bringing me back to the stark reality of my hospital room, I realized that the battle was only just beginning. The light of the revelation burned brightly within me, urging me forward into the unknown. Preparing myself to step boldly toward my destiny, I felt the weight of this awakening pulsing in my veins, propelling me to embrace the truth Jesus had unveiled and share it with others who longed for their own liberation. Upon my return to life, the remnants of my near-death experience remained vivid, yet the welcome I received was anything but warm. The moment I stepped back into the world, I was greeted with confusion, suspicion, and outright rejection from my family and community. They labeled me a traitor, a heretic, for the truths I had embraced during my encounter with Jesus. I could see the disappointment in their eyes, the hurt etched into their faces as they struggled to reconcile the Amir they once knew with the one who had emerged from the darkness carrying new beliefs. The internal conflict that followed was both intense and unyielding, as guilt and fear battled within me. How could I abandon the faith of my ancestors? How could I turn my back on the traditions that had defined my identity? Each interaction felt like a reminder of the chains I had willingly shed, yet now I stood at the precipice of loneliness. The very community that had once felt like home now felt like a prison, its walls closing in as I yearned for understanding. My heart ached with the weight of my decisions, the fear of being forever isolated from those I loved echoing in the corners of my mind. I was torn between the liberation I had experienced and the painful reality of losing my roots. As days turned into weeks, I found myself increasingly vocal about the awakening that had taken place within me. I began sharing my experiences with others, recounting the revelations that Jesus had shown me, the hidden agendas that divide us, the deception that keeps us blind to the truth, and the spiritual war being waged both outwardly in the world and inwardly within our hearts. I spoke of love, unity, and the importance of questioning the narratives that had shaped our beliefs for generations. Yet, with each testimony, I felt the chasm between me and my former life grow wider, deepening my sense of isolation. My family's rejection stung deeply, yet there was a flicker of hope igniting in the hearts of some who listened. A small group began to form, individuals who, like me, questioned the status quo, who felt the stirrings of a deeper understanding and a longing for truth. Together we explored the scriptures, engaged in discussions about our faith, and shared our journeys of awakening. This newfound community became a lifeline, but I couldn't escape the guilt that simmered beneath the surface. I still worried about the pain my transformation had caused my loved ones, and the specter of loneliness haunted me as I found solace in my new beliefs. The struggle within me wasn't just about faith, it was about identity, love, and the human need for connection. I often reflected on my family, especially during quiet moments when the weight of my decisions felt overwhelming. Would they ever understand? Could they ever forgive me for seeking a truth that had discarded the rigid confines of tradition? The fear of being alone in my beliefs loomed large, casting a shadow over the light I had found. But with every painful question, another truth emerged. I could not allow fear or guilt to dictate my journey. The urgency to spread this message only grew stronger as the world outside continued to shift, filled with conflict and chaos. I realized that awakening others to the truth was not merely a personal mission. It was a call to action meant to challenge the very fabric of society and the elite manipulation that kept us divided. As I prepared to take bolder steps within my community, I clung to the hope that, despite the sacrifices I faced, the light would ultimately break through the shadows of deception. And as I stood on the threshold of a new beginning, ready to confront the unfolding path ahead, I felt the powerful urging of the Holy Spirit guiding me into the unknown, determined to embrace the truth I had discovered. In secret, I embarked on a quest for truth, fueled by the revelations I had received during my near-death experience. Each day, after my family and colleagues went to sleep, I found myself immersed in a world I had long avoided, the pages of the Bible. As a Quran teacher, I had always been hesitant to explore this text, hesitant to confront the implications of its teachings. But the encounter with Jesus had unraveled something within me, a yearning that demanded exploration. The words began to resonate with a depth I had never experienced before, stirring something profound within my spirit. Each verse felt like a key, unlocking new dimensions of understanding and awakening the dormant questions I had buried deep within. In parallel to my study, I turned to the internet, discovering a range of Christian testimonies that echoed my own journey toward awakening. I watched individuals share their stories of transformation, from darkness into light, from confusion into clarity. Their words echoed the feelings I had experienced during my encounter with Jesus, offering me hope and affirmation that I was not alone in my struggles. These testimonies deepened my resolve, igniting a flicker of courage in my heart. Yet, with each video I watched, the fear of losing everything I had known crept closer, reminding me of the societal constraints that enforced silence on such explorations of faith. Throughout this journey, I stumbled upon a small underground group of Christians who met in secrecy, bonded by similar experiences of transformation and awakening. This camaraderie provided a much-needed sense of belonging as I navigated the choppy waters of my evolving faith. Each gathering felt sacred, filled with an intensity that underscored the urgency of our time. Together we shared our fears, our doubts, and most importantly, the truths we had uncovered. It was during these meetings that I grasped the full scope of the spiritual war being waged around us. Discussions often gravitated toward the hidden agenda of the elite, the manipulation of truths, and the deceptions leveraged to sow division among people. As we dug deeper into these themes, the sense of urgency intensified. I began to connect the dots between our spiritual awakenings and the chaos unfolding in the world outside. I shared my insights about how the teachings of Jesus urged love and unity, standing in stark contrast to the narratives promoted by leaders who thrived on conflict and deception. The conversations were electric, charged with a spirit of rebellion against the status quo. Each sharing filled me with hope and a growing fear of the inevitable consequences that awaited those who dared to challenge the established norms. Would our truths be accepted, or would they seal our fates as outcasts? Yet even amid that fear, I felt empowered. The revelations that flowed through us, the camaraderie we cultivated, became my lifeblood, giving me the strength to press on. I realized that sharing this truth was not merely an option, it became a sacred duty. I could not retreat to the life I once knew. I had tasted the sweetness of spiritual liberation, and it compelled me to act. The world around us was alive with potential, burning with a desire for awakening, and I was suddenly placed at the forefront of this movement. As I prepared to take bold steps, the truth I had gathered flowed through me like a river, urging me to rise and speak out against the deception that had long kept us shackled in ignorance and fear. As I navigated the aftermath of my near-death experience, a profound realization settled upon me. This was not just a personal journey, but a divine calling to alert others to the truth I had discovered. The light of Jesus illuminated my path, revealing the hidden spiritual war that raged within our society, and I knew I could no longer remain silent. The revelations echoed in my heart, compelling me to confront the deception that had imprisoned not only me, but countless others who were unaware of the struggle raging around them. Each day, as I reflected on my encounter with Jesus, I felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on my shoulders. I was haunted by the thought that I had been chosen to deliver a message, one that could potentially unravel the deceptive threads spun by the elite who manipulated society for their gain. Those in power thrived on division and fear, creating a climate that suffocated the truth. The realization fueled my commitment to break the silence that had been enforced by tradition and fear. I would share my journey, speak out against the manipulations, and illuminate the path for others seeking their own awakening. I began to connect with people who had felt the same stirrings in their spirits. As we gathered in secret, our discussions turned to the hidden agendas that plagued our communities. I saw the potential for a movement, one that could challenge the status quo and inspire others to seek the truth that lay buried beneath layers of deception. Each conversation sparked hope, igniting a fire within our souls that urged us to rise against the oppression imposed by rigid beliefs and societal norms. We exchanged ideas, strategized about how to wake others from their spiritual slumber, and encouraged each other to stand firm, even as fear threatened to engulf us. But the risks loomed large. I was acutely aware that my newfound convictions could lead to severe consequences. The fear of isolation from my family and community weighed heavily on my heart. I had seen the rejection that befell others who dared to challenge our traditions, and I couldn't shake the thought that I might face similar backlash. Yet, with every hurdle, I also felt a growing sense of urgency. Time was of the essence, and as I delved deeper into the truths I had uncovered, I became more resolute. This form of spiritual warfare required brave souls willing to confront the deception and claim the truth that would lead to liberation for all. Encouraged by the camaraderie I found in my new community, I embraced the challenge ahead. I realized that we had a choice: to remain shackled by fear, or to rise together, united in the pursuit of awakening. As I prepared to share my experience publicly, I felt both exhilaration and trepidation. The journey ahead promised to be fraught with tension, but the potential for transformation was immense. I understood that the truths of my awakening could forge new connections among people across cultural and ideological lines. By standing firm in faith and love, I believed we could combat the hidden agendas that sought to divide and control us. With each passing day, as I approached the precipice of a new beginning, I was reminded that my testimony held the power to ignite change. The light of Jesus became my guiding star, urging me to confront the darkness within and around us. As I prepared to share my revelations with the world, I felt an electric rush of hope mingled with anxiety. The impending confrontation was daunting, yet I remained steadfast, determined to illuminate the path forward for all who longed for the truth in a world shrouded in deception. The awakening was calling, and I was ready to answer. The culmination of my tumultuous journey arrived when I made the courageous decision to leave my home behind, a decision fraught with pain, fear, and uncertainty. I understood that to fully embrace the new life that awaited me, I had to change my name and shed the identity that had defined me for so long. Amir was a name steeped in tradition and expectation, but it no longer felt like mine. I needed to forge a new path, one where I could be free to explore the truths I had encountered during my near-death experience. This act of leaving was not just physical, it was a symbolic rebirth, a step into a world where I could express my newfound beliefs freely. Walking away from my community was heartbreaking. I felt the ties that connected me to my family and friends fray with each step. Those I had once taught now viewed me as a pariah. Despite the anguish that accompanied my decision, a flicker of hope ignited within me. This hope was rooted in the understanding that I was no longer shackled by the constraints of dogma. I felt empowered to share the messages Jesus had imparted to me during that life-changing encounter. I held on to the belief that by sharing my transformation, I could spark a similar awakening in others, guiding them away from the deception that had clouded their understanding. As I embarked on this journey toward liberation, I began to secretly evangelize, seeking out those who might be open to hearing the truths I had discovered. In the shadows of society, I found small pockets of believers, fellow seekers who were also yearning for something deeper than mere tradition. We met in hidden spaces, often whispering our truths in hushed tones, fearing the consequences of our awakening. These gatherings felt electric. Each story of transformation fueled our collective desire for change. Together, we delved into the teachings of Jesus, exploring the deeper meanings of love and unity, standing firm against the hidden agenda that sought to divide us. Every conversation served as a reminder of the spiritual war we were embroiled in. We discussed the manipulation by the elite that perpetuated conflict and division, trapping us in cycles of fear and misunderstanding. I grew acutely aware that this revelation was not merely a personal journey. It was an urgent call to address the societal issues that plagued our world. My heart raced with a mix of anxiety and determination as I prepared to advocate for unity and truth. I envisioned a world where we could stand together against deception, where the light would prevail over darkness. But even as I grew stronger in my purpose, the pain of leaving my past behind gnawed at me. I often reflected on the faces of my family and friends, wondering if they would ever understand the transformation I had undergone. The fear of rejection still loomed large, but it was accompanied by an unwavering resolve to continue my mission. I understood that the truth I carried could lead to healing, not just for myself but for many others caught in similar struggles. And so, I pressed on, driven by the hope that together we could challenge the narratives that kept us apart and awake to the possibility of a united front against the spectral forces of the hidden agenda woven through our society. As I stand at this crossroads of my life, I realize that my journey is not just mine alone. It echoes the struggles of so many who feel trapped between faith and doubt, tradition and awakening. What I've experienced is a divine call to action, a message that transcends the walls of any single belief system. In that moment of darkness when Jesus enveloped me in his light, I understood the magnitude of our collective spiritual battle. There is something monumental happening around us, a force that compels us all to seek the truth amidst the chaos, but it requires courage to push through the shadows. Now, I ask you, have you ever felt that stir within your heart, that whisper urging you to question your truths and beliefs? I want to hear your stories. Drop your reflections in the comments below. Each shared experience might spark an awakening in someone else searching for their own truth. Remember, you're not alone in this journey. The road may seem daunting, but together we can shine a light into the darkness that keeps so many shackled. If this message resonates with you, please take a moment to subscribe to Truth from Beyond and hit that notification bell. By doing so, you ensure that you're informed when we dive deeper into the revelations awaiting us. Your engagement is crucial. It amplifies the message of love, unity, and liberation that we need right now in a world that often prefers division and fear. And in our next video, we will explore another powerful testimony, an encounter that might just redefine what you understand about faith and community. I promise you, it's a truth that could transform your perspective forever. I'm Hamza, and I thank you for joining me on this sacred journey. Remember, as you take your next steps, the truth is alive, and it's waiting for you to embrace it. Let's keep seeking together. In secret, I embarked on a quest for understanding, exploring forbidden texts and dark corners of the internet where whispers of the gospel stirred my soul awake. I joined a clandestine group of believers, each of us risking everything to seek out the light amidst shadows. Together, we shared pain and hope, discovering a community built on the very essence of love and acceptance that I had long sought. This journey was never just about my transformation. It's a divine commission, a call to awaken others to the oppressive nature of fear cloaked in religious pretense. I now see my purpose: to be the voice for those still trapped in silence, to illuminate paths leading to spiritual truth, even as danger lurks around every corner. So here I stand, not as Amir the teacher, but Amir the awakened. Before we dive deeper, I invite you, comment below and share where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. And if you feel a stirring in your heart, subscribe to Truth from Beyond, because the truths I'm about to reveal could change everything. Don't miss the next chapter of this awakening. In the folds of a strict Islamic school, nestled in a conservative neighborhood of Saudi Arabia, my life revolved around tradition and discipline. I was a teacher, respected for my adherence to Islamic principles, and every day I stood before my students, instilling in them the values I held dear. The atmosphere was thick with obedience, and the silence surrounding personal doubts and spiritual inquiries was palpable. We were a community bound by faith, yet within my chest, a quiet battle raged. Could this be all there is to life? Were my teachings sufficient? Or was there something fundamentally missing in our understanding of the divine? Every day felt predictable, yet a growing sense of unrest clouded my spirit. I wanted to explore questions that gnawed at me, questions that could not slip past the barriers of tradition. The teachings drilled into us carried weight, but an undercurrent of curiosity surged within me, making me feel increasingly isolated. I watched my students engage eagerly with subjects, yet when it came to discussing deeper spiritual matters, they hesitated, afraid of the silence that would follow. It created an internal dissonance that I could no longer ignore. I needed answers, but I didn't know where to turn. Then came that fateful day, the day my life transformed forever. I was driving home from school, lost in thought, when suddenly an unexpected collision unfolded, and everything went dark. The crash was devastating, and in that instant, I felt brutally stripped of everything I knew. It was in this abyss of darkness that I had an encounter beyond earthly comprehension. I stood alone in a void, wrestling with confusion and fear, when a radiant light broke through the shadows. Jesus appeared before me, shining with love and compassion. His presence was tangible, wrapping around me like a warm embrace, cutting through the panic that surrounded me. "Welcome, my child," he said, and those words reverberated within me, filling the void left by my doubts. In that moment, everything changed. My heart opened to a flood of revelations. Jesus showed me the hidden agendas that underpin humanity, the system structured by the elite designed to keep us in deception. I witnessed the division sown among people, the manipulation of truth, and the ways in which conflict was orchestrated to maintain control over the masses. Each revelation struck me deeply, awakening a sense of urgency. I understood that this spiritual war was real, and that the forces of darkness thrived when faith was constrained by fear and ignorance. As I stood in that divine light, Jesus shared the essential truth of love, connection, and unity. "They wish to keep you in a box," he urged. But true faith transcends boundaries. It is an awakening of the spirit. I felt an overwhelming conviction wash over me. I knew that my experience was not just for me. It was a call for action, a responsibility to share what I had learned with the world. I wanted to rush back into the light I now saw, to help others break free from the chains of narrow beliefs and the deception that surrounded us. But just as abruptly as the light had appeared, I was jerked back into reality, gasping for breath in the aftermath of the accident. Awakening in the hospital, the weight of my experience settled heavily upon me. The light I had witnessed remained vivid in my memory, urging me toward a new path. Yet the fears of my old life clawed at me. How could I share the truths I had been entrusted with? The walls of tradition still loomed large around me, and I could sense the scrutiny of family and community. The thought of their disapproval sent chills down my spine. I felt like a stranger in my own life, caught between the awakening I had experienced and the life I had yet to leave behind. Would they understand the urgency of the truth I had been shown, or would I be met with hostility and rejection? With a pounding heart, I resolved that I couldn't let fear dictate my actions. The experience demanded courage, and as I moved through recovery, I began to plan my next steps. Each day, I envisioned gathering others who shared my longing for truth, those who had also felt the stirrings of doubt within the confines of tradition. I knew there was a greater purpose for me intertwining faith with action, a calling to combat the spiritual war that raged not just within myself but across our society. The awakening was just beginning, and with each heartbeat, I felt a surge of hope coursing through me, urging me onward into the unknown. At 33, I had earned my place as a respected Quran teacher in my conservative community. My life revolved around discipline, strict adherence to rituals, and the unyielding expectations placed upon me. To an outsider, I might have appeared to embody the ideals of a devoted spiritual leader. Yet inwardly, I battled a profound emptiness that gnawed at my spirit. I felt emotionally distant from my own life, unable to express the turmoil within, the doubts that loomed heavy over my faith like a dark cloud threatening to burst. The teachings I imparted felt steeped in tradition, yet they often felt like chains binding me rather than a source of liberation. Despite the respect I commanded, the loneliness became increasingly unbearable. I adhered strictly to the routines of our faith, leading prayers and guiding my students, hoping to find solace in my devotion. But with every lecture, I felt more like an actor in a play, delivering lines written by others. The weight of my responsibilities pressed down on me, leaving little room for the questions that seeped into my mind during sleepless nights. Was the rigidity of my faith suffocating my spirit? Was there a hidden agenda behind the pillars of tradition that kept us ensnared in conformity? I longed for answers but felt paralyzed by fear, terrified of the shadows of deception lurking in every corner. Then came the day that changed everything. A day marked by a deadly car accident that altered my perception of reality forever. I remember driving home from the school, the familiar streets around me shrouded in late afternoon light. Suddenly, everything transformed in an instant. The crash was violent, and as the world around me went dark, I was engulfed in an overwhelming silence. It was in this void that I experienced what felt like a journey beyond life as I knew it. I stood in a brilliant light, feeling warmth and love breaking through the coldness that had enveloped my spirit. And there he was, Jesus, radiant and compassionate, standing before me as if welcoming me home. "Amir," he said, his voice resonating through the light. In that moment, the weight of my doubts began to lift. Jesus illuminated the hidden truths I had failed to see, revealing the spiritual war that raged not just within me but across humanity. I was shown a world where the elite embodied manipulation, where hidden agendas undermined our faith and freedom. I witnessed scenes of conflict and division, the pain caused by deception that kept us from unity and love. Each revelation struck like lightning, awakening me to the urgent need for liberation from the confines of ignorance that had constrained me and many others for far too long. As he spoke, the truth became clear. The essence of faith was not merely in rituals, but in the love and compassion we extend to one another. I saw the potential for awakening, the possibility that my own journey could serve as a catalyst for others yearning to break free from their personal chains. Jesus urged me to grasp this revelation and share it, to confront the deception that divides rather than unites. I felt an overwhelming sense of purpose surge within me, an awakening that demanded action. Just as swiftly as the light enveloped me, I found myself thrust back into reality, gasping for breath in the wreckage of my car. Awakening in the hospital, the light of my encounter with Jesus still glimmered vividly in my mind, urging me to embrace the truth I had discovered. Yet, as I lay there recovering, a storm of doubts and fears brewed within me. The world I returned to was filled with uncertainty. Would my family and community accept the truths I had come to cherish? Would they understand the urgency of the awakening that burned brightly in my heart? Or would I be met with anger and rejection for daring to question the very foundations of our beliefs? Every day became a testament to my struggle as I navigated the tension between the life I had left behind and the possibilities that lay ahead. With a newfound determination, I resolved to step forward, to find a way to share my experience and fight against the deception that had held my community captive. I envisioned gathering those who, like me, felt the stirrings of doubt and confusion. I knew I couldn't face this battle alone. The spiritual war demanded unity and strength, and the truth I had encountered awaited broader dissemination. As I contemplated the road ahead, the urgency of my mission surged within me, filling me with hope and fear in equal measure. The time for awakening was upon us, and I was ready to take my first steps into the unknown and embrace the challenge that lay ahead. As I knelt in prayer, the familiar words felt hollow, echoing in a vast spiritual void that had settled within me. I had been a professor of the Quran, devoted to guiding others in their faith, but deep inside, something was amiss. This disconnection gnawed at my spirit during every prayer session, and with each supplication, I felt an increasing weight of doubt. What was the true purpose of my faith? Was I merely going through the motions, or was there a deeper meaning that had eluded me? The teachings I preached grew stale, and a stirring sense of unrest darkened my mind. My heart ached for more, a deeper connection with the divine, yet all I felt was emptiness. In the darkness of night, my dreams offered a sharp contrast to my waking reality. Intrusive visions of freedom flooded my mind, a bright light amid the deep shadows that filled my days. I would awaken breathless, feeling as if I had been touched by something extraordinary. Each dream urged me toward an awakening I couldn't fully understand, resonating with a sense of urgency I felt compelled to explore. Yet, the fear of straying from the doctrines I'd always accepted chained me to my bed. Wrestling with the desire to break free from the confines of dogma that had remained unchallenged for too long, I found myself increasingly torn, caught between a longing for enlightenment and the oppressive weight of traditional expectations. Each passing day brought a renewed sense of frustration. While my colleagues and community celebrated unwavering faith, I struggled with persistent questions that left me feeling isolated. I sought solace in texts, hoping for answers, but those texts felt insufficient against the backdrop of my reality. The dissonance grew sharper, pushing me to confront the uncomfortable truth. I was living in a state of spiritual dissonance. My heart was yearning for change, an opportunity to connect with something greater than myself. Yet I remained locked in a cage crafted from my own fears and societal expectations. Then came the day that would change everything. I stepped out of my routine and decided to take a different route home, a choice that would prove to be transformative. The accident came suddenly, and in an instant I was thrust into darkness beyond comprehension. It was here, in the depths of that void, that my life unraveled. I felt weightless, detached from the physical world, and in that moment of surrender, I encountered Jesus. His presence enveloped me, filling the emptiness I had felt for so long with warmth and love. I was no longer isolated. I was seen, understood, and welcomed into a realm of light and truth. Jesus spoke to me, revealing the hidden agendas that manipulate our lives, the deception woven through the fabric of society by the elite who thrive on our ignorance. I saw the world laid bare before me, the division, the pain, and all the conflict that stemmed from fear and misunderstanding. It was a revelation that shattered my preconceptions and sparked an awakening that would forever alter my path. I realized the spiritual war was not just a concept, it was a reality that demanded my attention and action. This experience compelled me to confront the darkness that had seeped into the community I cherished, urging me to embrace a new truth that transcended cultures and divisions. As I returned to consciousness after my near-death experience, a surge of purpose replaced the void I had felt for so long. The memory of that transcendent encounter with Jesus burned brightly in my heart, igniting a determination to share this truth with others. I was no longer content to live in silence. The weight of my revelations guided me forward. Yet still, the fear of rejection lingered. Would my community embrace the truths I had been shown, or would I face backlash for daring to challenge long-held beliefs? I stood at a precipice, ready to leap into a new beginning, yearning to awaken others from their slumber as I had been awakened. The battle for truth was just beginning, and I was ready to fight, armed with the love and light that Jesus had shared with me. The moment the car collided with the other vehicle was a jarring rupture in the fabric of my existence. One moment, I was driving home from my teaching job, firmly entrenched in the mundane rhythms of daily life, and the next, I found myself suspended in a terrifying void. There was no noise, no pain, only a complete disconnect from my physical body. It felt like I had crossed an unseen threshold into a realm that was both unnervingly foreign and achingly familiar. As I hovered in this dark expanse, I felt an oppressive weight pressing in on me from all sides, a seemingly endless abyss suffocating my spirit. Then, amidst that shroud of silence, Jesus appeared. His presence pierced through the darkness like a beacon of hope, radiating warmth and love. Amir. He called my name, a gentle yet firm sound that resonated deep within my soul. In that instant, the overwhelming sense of despair transformed into a profound relief.